Welcome to The Range Brief with Blackway. I'm your host, Jared Rainey. Today, I'm joined by a couple of my favorite people at the shop. All right, got Jedediah McLean. Say hi, Jed.
Thank you for having me back. Let's just make, I think, number 4 or 5.
Yeah, man, we're going to have to co-host you here soon.
I'm going to need some credits.
Mark's going to lose his credits. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to have to get a contract renewal or something going.
And I've also got Alex Darabon. Alex, say hi.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for having me here.
So today we're talking about clone rifles. And for those that don't know, Jed, what's the definition of a clone rifle?
So what we could find was a clone rifle is a functional replica of a firearm that was used and issued by the United States military.
So replica, I would say these really became popular in the GWOT veterans. So Global War on Terror, all those dudes came back. They wanted the rifle they carried overseas. So you'll see like the M4 versions of that. So M4A1, the Mark 18, those were really popular. And then also the optics accompanying those. It's part of the cloner world is having the correct optics. And we'll get into it, the minutia that these guys go into to make it match. But that separates it from surplus. Alex, what differentiates a clone from surplus to you?
I mean, to me, a surplus rifle is basically just something that was actually an original military production rifle that's now on the civilian market. Obviously, it's been converted, so it's no longer a fully automatic machine gun or anything like that. The civilian models are going to be semi-automatics, or if they are an automatic machine gun, obviously they're going to be a pre-86 machine gun. But to me, that's what surplus means compared to a clone, which is attempting to replicate that, but with a new production gun.
So we're going to talk, surplus being our 1903s or 03A3s or Krag rifles or M1 Garands, that kind of thing.
Yeah, M1 Garand, I think that's like the perfect example. Like you don't need to clone it. It already exists. But if you have a BAR, if you got a machine gun, that's not a clone. You've got a BAR.
Right.
Somebody carry that bad boy. So yeah, I guess what would make sense is jumping right into it. What's the most popular clone right now?
It's got to be the Mark 18.
It got to be.
Yeah, I think it's probably Mark 18 or Mark 12. Probably the most common you see.
I mean, I like the Mark 18 so much. I've got 2 of them. So.
And which ones do you have?
So, I mean, I've got a Daniel Defense. Now, that one is just the upper. I've got it on a Noveske lower, which, I mean, you can kind of mix and match that. But I'm running the Daniel upper on that one. And then I've got another one. I've got an LMT. But the upper on that is actually just a hodgepodge of a bunch of different things. But it's got the Mark 18 forend, which basically is that 1913 rail quad rail.
Yeah, that's the RIS 2, I believe, from Daniel Defense.
Yeah, RIS 2.
Yeah, I'd say that's so you committed a little clone sin, I would say. You said you can mix and match parts and have non-original lowers. Man, the diehards, they would fight you over those words.
Probably.
Like if you have a Mark 18 that doesn't have a Colt lower, it's not clone correct. If it doesn't have the right roll mark, it's still not clone correct.
Some would even say I don't have a Mark 18.
Yeah, exactly. I think
you have a clone of a clone.
So the Mark 18 is definitely popular because you can buy it from so many companies right now. Everybody, or anything that's like a 10.5-inch barrel, people mark it as a Mark 18. Breaking down that mark definition, anything with a mark, it was first adopted by the Navy. So if you see a mark in front of a military rifle, it's because the Navy adopted it first. Doesn't mean the Army can't have one. Just means the solicitation was started by the Navy. So you have like Mark 18, Mark 12, Mark 13. Any other marks? All the machine guns.
I mean, they have the handguns too, the Mark 23, Mark 25.
Yeah. All of those are clone. Well, I guess the Mark 23, you can just buy that.
Yeah.
Clone pistol.
Is that surplus or clone at that point?
Oh, it wouldn't be surplus.
It wouldn't be surplus because it wasn't a true issue.
Right.
Yeah, it'd have to fall in the serial number range of a mark. Or, God, this is going to be a lot of marks today. Whatever we were talking about. Cool.
If we had a mark here, there would be one more mark.
Damn. Missed out, Mark. I would say the Mark 18 is probably the most popular. If you look on the Instagram, you're going to see a lot of Mark 18s. And I guess we should queue up kind of the leaders in this. It's like Clone Rifles, at Clone Rifles. And who else do we talk about? I like clone standards. They're like my
clone rifles was another one that we found.
Clone standards is my favorite.
Standards.
Check out clone standards. You're going to like that stuff. But Mark 18, so you've got a couple different versions of that, like the M4 and all the variants of it. So like a URGI, you can buy those directly from Daniel right now. You can buy them directly from Geisley, excuse me. So that's a 14.5-inch military gun with the correct flash hider from Surefire. You can buy it directly from Geisley. So, I mean, at that point, is that clone?
Why wouldn't it be? I mean, the M118, the unattainium of clones, right? From Knights. Like, you would be buying that from them direct. Like, if you had the money for the deployment package. So, I mean, it's still a clone, right? It's the gun.
What was the thing you just said?
The M110?
Oh, yeah, the M110. I would say that is like the king of clones right now. It's definitely the most expensive one. Well, no, machine guns.
I mean, it's more expensive than some machine guns.
Yeah, that's accurate.
But it's not more expensive than like military machine guns. I'm surplus military machine, like an M60. It's still cheaper than an M60.
Oh, yeah, M60 or M134, but
trying to think of another military machine gun,
like the Colt 614, which was the Air Force's guns that went to the market, that are true machine guns from Colt, the autoselector, the whole bit. Those are 25 to 30,000, and I mean the only 110s that we're seeing on the market right now are in a $30,000 range. So I mean they're right there with them.
Big woof.
Yeah, just pulls you right out of the want into the maybe if I win the lottery category.
Yeah, the M110. So that's the U.S. Army's semi-automatic sniper system, and that's like a whole kit. So it's like a big Desert Tan box that it comes. It's called a deployment kit. It's got a suppressor. It comes with magazines. They used to sell those. I think when I was a young man, they were $11,000. Oh, I think that's right. I think they were like $11,000. Well, they have gone up substantially. Right now, you can't find the whole kit for less than $30,000.
Now you've got a little personal experience behind those, don't you?
Yeah, man. And I'll tell you what, it ain't worth $30,000. It's sweet, but my God, it ain't that sweet. And I think that's kind of the case for all clone rifles is if they're military arms, like they're going to be solid, robust guns, but man, they are like right now, especially they are artificially expensive. For example, like if you wanted to be clone correct in a Mark 18, well, you'd have to buy a Colt barrel, you'd have to buy a Colt upper, a Daniel rail, which are getting harder to find. And then, depending on what, like the Knight suppressor to be clone correct. I mean, that gun is going to cost you, just the upper itself is going to be $2,000 if you can find the flash hider, because cloning has become so popular. Like this stuff is just pricey because it's scarce, not because it's like a great gun. It's just a 10.5-inch, not even a Coldhammer forged barrel, but it's clone correct.
And granted, even in clone correct as well, I mean, specifically with the Mark 18 in mind, which was born of the SOPMOD program, stands for Special Operations Peculiar Modification. I mean, there's different blocks in that. So there's like block 1, block 2, block 3, all the different designations, which refer to different combinations of accessories or equipment that you could put on the firearm. And even, with special operations community too, a lot of those guys will customize the gun for their needs, but specifically the mission they have in mind too. So there can be variation in what a clone correct rifle for like that specific example could mean.
Yeah, there's an argument that that's the most clone correct thing to do. Like if you had the gun, the cloner, like what would a dude actually do? He'd put on the coolest thing or the best thing he could afford, or like the unit would buy him. So yeah, absolutely. It's kind of outside the norm of cloning, but I think that makes the most sense. And this is the best argument because you see like Arredondo magazine wells on M4s, clearly never a military issued part, but SF dudes were doing it.
Right.
So I make that pretty clone correct.
Barbie for men based on budget.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. So what are some other clones? I think the M16, oh my gosh, that is blown up. You got Brownells, you got Palmetto State.
I mean, FN brought back a couple of
others.
others.
FN, the whole collector series.
And the Colt reproductions, and they call them reissues, right? Colt reissues
Yeah.
and the collector edition FNs.
Yeah, because Colt did the what was it, the 16A1 and the XM177. FN's doing the M4A1.
They're doing the M4. Well, yeah, I think it is an A1.
And then they're doing the
M16,
M16A4.
Yeah. I got to
With
give a shout out to FN too, though, because they did a little bit of fan service there. They even went retro with the logo that they etched into the receiver.
Yeah, I mean, that gun is ostensibly, except for the third pinhole, is like an Army or a Marine Corps issued firearm, which is really cool. And they brought it in at a price point that people can actually attain. I think Colts, my God, those were
almost $3,000.
Yeah, they were pricey guns. They were cool, but man, they were steep. And the Brownells ones, I mean, that's like, if you want the experience of shooting a 1960s M16, man, those are like a pretty sweet deal, I would think.
I just want to know what deal FN worked out with Knights Armament to get the Knights Armament actual clone correct furniture on there too.
Well, I bet the only reason Knights did it is because they still got a contract for the Marine Corps. Well, no, they don't, because the Marine Corps doesn't use the M16 now. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, Knights they're doing all right. They're not worried.
Some back alley deal.
And speaking of Knights, if you want clone correct rails, good luck these days. If you want the Mark 12 rail, which is the 18-inch special purpose rifle, kind of the archetype of that gun, it's $900 for the rail right now. Ask me how I know.
And that's a used one.
Oh yeah,
Like, that's not a new part, people. This is something that's been used, that's got the wear and tear, which is one thing I find really unique with the clone rifle game. Guys don't mind that. It adds a little prestige to it. It adds a little history behind it. And these guys don't mind paying for something that's got some dings and wears on it.
Yeah, man. And it really, if you're putting surplus parts on your clone, like, you're so much more authentic. I think that is part of the mentality.
Yeah, because I was never issued anything new. My rifle in Afghanistan was an M16A1 lower on an A2 upper from Colt.
Oh.
They had taken a metal etcher pen and scratched out auto and crudely wrote burst underneath it.
So what's awesome is when I got when we got M4A1s, they took an X and they stamped out burst and they carved in auto.
That's fantastic.
Imagine going so next level with your build that you did that too.
I mean, that would be
kind of
that'd
dumb.
be so clone correct. But there's lots of cool clones out there. If anybody's a veteran in the Marine Corps, like, the Marine Corps has a lot of kind of interesting clones, like the SAM R series. They've got their own version of the Mark 12. I don't know. I feel like the Navy in general just has a lot more options. The Army just kind of plays with the tools they're given. But I must have a lot of solicitations in the Navy. If you're listening and you have a little insight into that world, I'd love to hear about it. What's a Mark 13 going for right now? That's got to be M110 money. So a Mark 13, that's the Navy's 300 Win Mag gun. If you saw American Sniper, that's Chris Kyle's sniper rifle in that movie. It looks kind of like an AI, but it's not. Actually, it might be. It might be an AI.
That being short for Accuracy International.
It is an AI. Yeah, so it's the AI from that movie, from that time. I think the second most popular clone would probably be anything from Black Hawk Down.
There's a lot of people trying to clone from that movie, especially too.
The Gordon carbines, which is like the Car 15 they had in that movie with the suppressor, super popular. Also the M14 from that movie that one of the dudes in the helicopter has. Oh, yeah. You know, like, everybody wants to clone that.
Was that already the EBR at that point?
No, this was way before the EBR.
Oh, wow.
It was like an M14.
Just straight up.
It might have had Acura. I don't know. That's not my clone of choice.
Now, like, those would have had synthetic stocks at that point, though, right? They probably weren't running wood stocks from the choppers. Or could I be wrong?
I think they might have.
I think they had wood stocks, and I mean, this was...
I'm going to have to go back and watch that movie now.
I swear they did, because they had the foam cut out and duct taped around it, so he was getting a cheek weld up on the scope.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
I did it right. Dude, I'm pretty sure it's wood. We're looking at our phones as we speak here. Sorry about this. Not as quite as eloquent as our normal podcast.
So to answer your question earlier, Mark 13s are pretty much unobtainium. and like clones are, 8 to 9,000. It looks like something a little more correct to like the Mark 13 Mod 7 is pushing a little closer to 15.
Man, that doesn't seem, I mean, that's a lot, but I mean, a new AI is $8,000.
Yeah.
So that's a brand new
Factory production
rifle that is as cutting edge as AI can make it. And that's half the price of a clone gun.
See, that's kind of where like I approach it from too. I'm not one of those people that goes so clone crazy that I need to get all the original parts and put Knight's Armament gear on all of my guns. No, for me, I look at the task and purpose. So for me, the reason I have 2 Mark 18s and the reason they're popular for me is because I look at it as a personal defensive firearm that I could kit out just about however I want. So I've got a flashlight on mine, foregrip, and if I wanted to put a laser designator on there or something like that, I've got the room to do it. So for me, it's a functional piece, not so much one that I'm really interested about getting all the right stuff on.
Yeah, I mean, there's no argument. I think if you want a cost-effective gun, you can get a way better gun for way less money than a clone.
Absolutely.
It is all about the reenactment or like having the rifle, I don't know, that was available at our time, like in our time, especially anybody in the GWAT. I feel like these are the guns that really resonate with us. Like when I think of cool guys as a kid, they had Mark 12s and they had Gordon carbines, and I don't know, all that just resonates with me. That the M16 with the 203 on the bottom and the weird handguard, that is like the one from Predator. You know what I mean? Like that is the coolest looking gun ever. I mean, not a great gun, super heavy. And we've learned to not put the grenade launcher on the gun at this point, but looks so cool.
Speaking of Predator, Sonny's character running around with that full-size Mossberg 500 on 12 gauge
master key.
And I mean, it wasn't even a master key, with the master key, Knights cut those down. I mean, his was literally a Mossberg 500 with no stock, like bolted onto this gun.
So some Hollywood stuff.
Yeah, but you know what? It's like, I kind of want that now.
I guess that would be a clone of a movie gun.
Yeah, I mean, so then at that point, like, where does the clone begin and end? I guess it depends if you want to go like the purist route, like it had to be a documented. Somebody had to have it. There has to be a picture that says this is a documented bit versus, hey, I want to recreate this movie gun. Is this as cool as that?
Right.
Yeah, I think you're right. A traditional cloner would be like, it has to be a military issued piece of equipment. But there are so many people like the Gordon carbine or any of the Black Hawk Down things. Not a lot of evidence that those like in that configuration existed, but damn, they look cool. And I feel like if you're cloning one, it's close enough.
Right.
What else is there? The Blood Diamond gun. Oh, I see that thing cloned all the time. It's like a Car 15. Looks very similar to, every other 10.5 inch gun with a suppressor, but it looks so cool. It's got the original aim point.
You've got a really nice clone set up yourself, though, don't you, Jared?
Well, I try. Yeah, I've got a pretty cool Mark 12. It's actually the PRI gun. But the hard part is sourcing the correct rings and the scope. Oh, the scope. My God, the scope is...
The scope was almost as much as the rifle was.
It was actually more than the rifle. Problem is like, the precision rifle shooters like, that's not abnormal. This is a 2 to 8 second focal plane scope from 2000 and cutting edge circa 2002. Like it's not all that. And it's definitely not worth what I paid for it.
I think most people would have been just as happy slapping a modern production Mark V first focal plane.
They would have been way more capable.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm working a mill reticle with MOA turrets and they're exposed and there's no lock.
But it's correct.
But again, it's back to that nostalgia bit that some of us have as GWAT veterans. Like that's more true to it.
Yeah. I mean,
we're going for that nostalgia factor.
It's my favorite gun. It's not a great gun.
Granted, you probably actually had that at one point, right? Like that exact setup.
The Mark 12 was before my time. The 110 that really is my time. And it had a very similar scope. So it takes me back. Only I can afford to shoot it because it's not that 308 money.
Right.
I don't know. And I think that is one of the more popular clones because you can buy it. I mean, you can still buy a Mod 1 Mark 12. I guess it wouldn't be a Mod 1, a Mod 0 Mark 12 from PRI. We've actually carried them. They're really cool guns. They're set up for the correct suppressor of that time. And I think the suppressor is probably the only piece of kit from that gun that's still relevant today.
And speaking of too, I mean, you can go as nuts with Clone Correct as like, so the original suppressor for that would have been the Allen Engineering, right? But so Otter Creek Labs, they're doing that OCM5, which is more or less kind of an improved version of the old original Allen Engineering suppressor that would have gone on that.
Yeah, so before it was Allen Engineering, it would have been Ops Inc. And they went out of business. Yeah. They went out of business, I don't know, 10 years ago. And then the engineer for that, Ron Allen, I think is his name, he started Allen Engineering and started making the steel suppressor. But yeah, it's a heavy can. I mean, it is heavy. It is long. It's an over-the-barrel design. But surprisingly, it is one of the quietest 5.56 suppressors you can shoot. I mean, it is remarkable how a suppressor that old is so effective. The downside being she heavy. We talked about the OCM5. That's an Otter Creek suppressor, but it's titanium. So it looks Clone Correct, but it's better in every way, which is probably the smart thing to buy. But man, I got a soft spot for the OG stuff. But if you were going to buy an OpSync suppressor right now, they're like $2,000. And a new manufactured suppressor is like $800. So it's definitely an artificial cost there.
I mean, can you even find a current production OpSync anymore, or is that going to be surplus at this point?
The person who's selling that is selling it because they bought it back then. I mean, they bought it when OpSync was still a company. So it's been floating around for a while. So it's an old suppressor. It's probably shot out, but it's Clone Correct. I don't know. I think it's cool. All right. Well, I guess if anybody is interested in talking in depth about one of these guns or the history, we would be happy to talk about it. This is definitely my bag, and I think Jed's got some buy-in on that too. So if this interests you, please let us know. If you guys, and there's lots of clones out there, if we didn't even touch on yours, I'm sorry. But I want to hear from you guys. Alex, what is your favorite clone?
I mean, by far, hands down, the Mark 18. Now, if we're going completely SOP mod correct and everything, then we can get into that topic too about, are we talking block 1, block 2, block 3, any of that. But for me, what a Mark 18 is, 10.5 inch cold hammer forged barrel. You've got a quad rail 1913 rail. And for some people that want to be purists about it, I mean, you could go with like an A2 front gas block or whatever. I believe the original Mark 18 actually did. So that would have had A2 gas block and then just some kind of other rear sight cut down.
So the original Mark 18, it just had a front sight post.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just that and a Knight's armament rail. The block 2 is what I think you like, the one with the 10-inch rail.
Right.
That's the one you can still buy from Daniel. But yeah, what Clone Correct optics and accessories you got on this thing?
Nothing really.
We're dreamweaving here, man. You can have whatever you want.
Oh, like if I could just get it out like with any of the original stuff.
Got to be Clone Correct.
Well, I mean, they were probably running, what is that, the Aimpoint red dots on those at the time? Or no, it was a Seymour under the Special Operations Program.
Yeah, you see some dudes with Seymours running around, but I think that was the far less common. I think like an Aimpoint.
And they actually even got that as an accident from my understanding as well.
Yeah, Fifth Group they did their own shit, man. They get whatever they want. But I think like the EOTech, the LCAN, and the Aimpoint are probably the three like Clone Correct are the most common clone optics.
But yeah, probably. I mean, if I could have it set up any way I want, then basically just with the Aimpoint on top of it, to be honest, I just love that. It's a rugged optic for a rugged gun. The reason I got the gun is I want something that is able to withstand a whole lot of abuse, but keep on running. And that's one of the things I like about the Mark 18 short gas system in it. It's just a trucker of a gun.
She's definitely proven. She's been around for a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Jeb, what about you? What's your ideal clone?
Honestly, I gotta break the trend, man. And I don't know that mine falls completely under. I feel like it should, but I would want Carlos Hathcock's Vietnam Winchester Model 70 and 30-06.
Damn, I feel like that is right on the cusp of not being a clone.
Right? Because it's a weird gray area for it. Because it wasn't an issued gun, but it was the gun that he used in Vietnam.
There are dudes who are definitely cloning that.
You know, and that's like there's a nostalgia to that for me. That's one, it's different. It's not like, you know, I've got M16A2 clones. I've got XM177 clones. I've got M4E1 clones. You know, I want a Mark 12, especially after playing with yours.
Yes, you do.
You know, so, but that's one that to me is just so unique for, you know, what that guy did with it during a couple tours in Nam and, you know, the havoc he wreaked on the enemy. And I would love to see Remington or Winchester do like a true clone of those Vietnam era guns, the heavy barrels, 30-06 or 308, the varmint stocks, you know. But
I mean, they look like sporting rifles. They don't look like what you would think of as a sniper rifle at all.
Right.
They don't have bipods yet. They're shooting off packs.
yeah,
I feel like you don't need to. You don't need them to make that. You can just go on Gunbroker right now and find that gun.
oh man, dude, varmint Winchester 70s are insane. And I mean, and yet it's one of those things too that it's for me at this point in my collecting and gun buying, I don't want to spend the money that is going to get me old technology when, you know, I'm sure GA Precision is making something really close to like the M40E1, you know, and that would probably be the better route for me to go. But at the same time, like, man, to find an old pre-64 Winchester 70 varmint and Thought 6 and an old Yertle scope.
Nerdle scopes, man.
to
Fixed
re-
10 power.
Yeah,
Woof.
to recreate that, like, and just to be able to shoot that, and you know, especially now with, you know, running Mark 5s and first focal planes and shooting 1,000 and plus yards and the experiences that I've got behind that, to be able to go back and play with what these guys were using. Now, granted, they weren't always sniping at, you know, the crazy movie distances that we see Hollywood throw, but to actually get behind one of those and be like, wow, these guys were pulling some crazy shots off with some crap. That's some crap utensils.
It's an interesting point, though. Like, I mean, a clone correct gun really does gives you the experience that these guys would have had. I think that's part of the culture. It's like, dude, you can't put a Mark 5 on your Mark 12 because it's wrong. Like, that's not what they would have had. They wish they would have had that. They would have been stoked to have it. But it kind of takes you out of that reenactment experience, because if you just want a super accurate 18-inch AR, you don't got to buy a Mark 12. You know what I mean? There's just so many people making competitive options.
Yeah, and I got a good friend of mine that's got a true 03A4 sniper rifle, and it has the correct M1C Garand scope. That would have been right for Korea. And dude, it's a cool rifle. But then you get behind it and you shoot it at a few hundred yards and it's like, this thing's miserable. Like,
it's so
these
foggy.
guys were having to snipe with this.
Yeah,
like,
people
geez.
sniped with it.
And I mean, these, you know, you had some bad dudes on our side out there making things happen with equipment that at the time was cutting edge. But then when you look how much we've progressed, it's like, man, it's such a disadvantage to today's bit, but there's such a nostalgia factor behind it. That's so cool to me to be like, dude, these guys were men.
I mean, they were badasses of their time, that's for sure.
Yeah. What is that giant scope you see on the A3? Somebody's making a reproduction of that right now on the Springfield, like the World War II sniper rifle. It's like, I think it's 4 power.
Yeah, it's a fixed 4.
And it's huge.
Yeah.
It takes up the whole damn gun. Yeah. Those are no jokes. You want to talk about clone expense? Look at sniper rifle clones, especially M1Ds, M1Cs, the Springfield clones, Mosin Nagant clones, Kar 98 clones. That's big money.
Oh man, even Dragunovs, like true Dragunovs, not that PSL 54 copy that's a big AK, but like true Dragunovs, they're $12,000.
Yeah, it's nuts.
How much is like one of those Starlight scopes from the Vietnam era going for these days?
Honestly, probably not that much.
Really?
They were
Probably doesn't work anymore.
Oh, they definitely don't work. They didn't work when they were new. Man, I don't know. There's some guys doing that, but I would think that they're pretty cheap. Like 7 Bravo night vision is on the night vision scheme is really cheap. If anybody's listening to this and you don't know what a 7 Bravo is, it's like the Cyclops looking night vision where it goes from 2 to 1. And if you're using one of those, you're an antique. That's some bad night
Knock
vision.
the dust off and take a couple Advil.
That's right after the starlight. Okay, so we're going to jump off topic a little bit and go to surplus. Actually, I'm going to talk about my favorite clone, the Mark 12. Really, that is the coolest concept ever. And if you don't know the history about it, I'm going to take some time. So early GWatt guys want an accurized upper receiver. And at the time, you're talking about the M4 and the M16, so 20 inch or 14.5 inch. If you guys don't know anything about military procurement, Congress won't let you buy anything that the Army already or the military already has in inventory. So instead of giving it a 20 inch barrel, they gave it an 18 inch barrel and put it in a free float rail and a suppressor and an optic. And at the time, this was cutting edge. Now we kind of take that for granted, but this was one of the few times the Army is actually ahead of the curve and came out with this thing. And it is awesome. And if you haven't got to shoot one, find somebody who's got one or get a PRI because they are super fun to shoot and kind of nostalgic. Look one up. If you've seen Load and Survivor, that's a mod 1 of the Mark 12. So really cool gun. But money was no object. And you could have any surplus gun, any gun in the American inventory since freaking Civil War. I don't care. What would it be? Alex, you up first.
Well, mine's actually going to be a German gun. But, if I could,
that wasn't even on the table.
Can't do that.
German gun?
I don't know, man. If I could have an MG42.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I mean, that's a badass gun. Now, if I was going to have the modern version of that, absolutely the MG3 all day. It's the same exact gun, just in a 308.
We brought the wrong guy on this podcast. Picks German stuff?
And not even the
me right
MP5.
Ugh.
Like,
I mean, okay, let's be honest. The M249 and the M60 were both just butchered versions of the MG42.
How dare
the
you?
king of the machine gun.
Scott, we're going to have to bleep all this out.
we're gonna have to. We gotta just you're fired.
It's okay.
It's over.
Next. What?
For me, man, there's 2 that come to mind, and I'm torn between them. I couldn't pick one. I would have to toss a coin and then probably regret the decision that the coin made. But it would be the M60, the hog, the rooster, the pig, like just the cadence that thing.
It's got a good sound. It's got a good vibe.
There's a nostalgia to it. Growing up as a kid and watching Full Metal Jacket and Animal Mother slinging that thing around, like, oh man, I was there. But I'm torn between that and the M79 grenade launcher, the old thump gun,
Goose,
the
duck,
thumpers,
or whatever they call it.
yeah, the bloop gun. Just that Mattel. When that thing goes,
I feel like somebody has to make that.
I've looked and there's kits and you can piece one, and of course you could always form one if you can get all the parts and stuff together. But when I was looking for one, I actually found that it was a little easier to find a China Lake than it was an M79, and I was shocked by that. But the China Lakes are out there.
It's because they weren't that good.
They weren't that good. They were absolutely terrible. They didn't work. And that 79, Terminator 2, Arnold one hand in that thing. Granted, it's a movie and he's a giant dude, but
Dude, they were using the M79 in GWatt. I mean, you saw guys with those cut off. They didn't have the stock on them anymore, just a pistol grip. But that thing's still kicking ass today, probably.
I mean, and it's that sound. It's that goofy boom. This 40 mic grenade goes like swinging down the hall.
I have been shocked by both of these. Anything's on the table. And these 2 pick the most mundane antiques. Speaking of antiques, mine would be a Stoner 63.
Okay. So we're we're hovering that Vietnam era.
Yeah.
We are definitely in the Vietnam era. Well, 2 of us are.
I mean, if you're going to have me pick an American one, I think I would amend my answer to the M240 Bravo.
The 240. Which version?
I don't know. I think probably the full size as opposed to the compact.
The newest one is the Lima. That's the one you should get.
Yeah.
From experience, if I had to schlup one, that's the one I'd pick.
You know what I'm shocked no one picked is the Deuce.
Too much.
Come on, man.
Stop compensating.
Like,
even if I had all the money in the
there's nothing
world
on the planet that you pretty much couldn't destroy.
I mean, if I wanted to kill a building with style, I'd probably do it with the Modus, but
No, you guys are wrong. Because you'd have to have two, and you'd have to put it in the back of a Hilux, and it's just a dream too far. Nope. Stoner 63
Get your Rambo on.
I feel like people don't know what the Stoner 63 is.
I do. I'm with you there. Really, really unique design. Eugene Stoner, hence Stoner 63, who's also the same gentleman involved with the development of our M16s.
even before it was the M16.
The AR-15, the AR-10 platform.
The father of the modern
sporting
AR-15
rifle.
Yeah.
To be politically
the most
correct.
popular firearm in the United States.
But, really unique design. It had a belt-fed and magazine option. If I remember right, it was SEALs that were vetting that in Nam.
Yeah, it was a Lurch thing, a SEAL thing, Lurch thing in Vietnam. And it was actually an Ohio gun, which takes some pride in that, Ohio. They were made by Cadillac Gage off Stoner's design. And it was a configurable gun. It was either like a carbine or a belt-fed machine gun. And the belt-fed machine gun variant is by far the cooler of the two. And it's probably one of the coolest machine guns ever made.
If I remember right.
Awesome.
There's a Call of Duty that has that in it too.
I believe
Don't
so.
ruin
One of them
it.
had.
Don't.
Well,
shit
but
on
think
it,
about
guys.
it. Like if anybody is listening and you've got kids or you got a PlayStation or Xbox yourself, like Call of Duty, the Modern Warfare, the what was the Black Ops series or whatever?
Yeah, I think so.
Or whatnot.
Yeah.
There's some clones in there.
Oh,
that,
yeah.
these guys are pulling from. And
I mean, the first time I ever encountered the Knights SR25 as the M110 SASS was in the Rainbow Six series, and I fell in love with that gun right there. I mean, if I wanted to take something out long range in that game, I'd use the M110, and you'd better believe I'd love one in real life, but I also don't want to give an arm and a leg to get one.
You'd have to.
What's a kidney worth right now?
Not enough. Not that Knight's money. No. Yeah, I think the video game, I don't know. As firearms owners, I feel like we have to be stoked about video games because so many new gun owners are basically gun owners because of video games.
Well, and I wonder, as we're talking about this, it's kind of got my gray matter rolling around that hamster's starting to move the wheel. Is, our generation and the progress of, Call of Duty and Modern Warfare and Black Ops and whatnot, is that fueling, I wonder, some of that want for clone rifles? Maybe not, for us, you and I, Jared, we were GWAT veterans, but for some of these other guys that didn't serve, I wonder if that plays a bit into it,
I mean, I'll weigh into that. I mean, 100%. Because if you look at the new Call of Duty that's out there, so the new revamped version of Modern Warfare, they introduced that new system for accessorizing your firearm they call Gunsmith. And you can configure some of the base model firearms into like insane different configurations. And some of those actually, you can put quote unquote clone correct accessories on there. So I see a lot of people coming in where, they have a particular setup they liked in COD. And now they're trying to replicate that video game pattern firearm in the real world.
Man, when you're cloning Call of Duty, big woof.
Well, but I mean, think about it, man. Where did Call of Duty get the inspiration from?
God.
I mean, you hope it was, pictures and evidence of actual life.
I'm hoping Grand Thumb did this and not Call of Duty. Man, I think, okay, what are some store options you can actually buy clone correct guns from? So we talked about the Colt and the FN. I guess the Scar, that's about as clone correct as a gun you can buy from like off the shelf right now. The Scar 16 and 17. That's the semi-automatic version of what was adopted by the Rangers and Special Operations in, God, what year was that? 2010? Probably earlier. Oh, it had to be earlier than that. 2008 maybe.
PRI. Precision Reflex Industries would be another one.
Out of Ohio. Yep, that's the Mark 12. Who else is making a clone? I guess the Honey Badger. That's a clone.
I mean, technically.
No, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
The Honey Badger's a clone.
Yeah.
Noveski.
Yeah, they did some barrels. They did a lot of barrel work.
The Afghan and Infidel.
But didn't those go on like precision rifles? Those went on Mark 12s, I'm pretty sure.
Colt.
Don't quote me.
Colt even brought back the 6940, the monolithic design.
Yeah, which was, depending on who you talk to, what kind of gave LMT the inspiration behind theirs.
Speaking of LMT as well, I mean, technically, if you're not looking at a U.S. specific clone correct rifle, LMT actually sells literal clone correct versions of their guns that they sell to other militaries. So, for example, the Estonia pattern rifle, they call it Estonia reference rifle, and the New Zealand reference
I was
rifle.
say the New Zealander.
That was a good point.
Yeah.
So,
oh man, the Spear, when it finally comes out from SIG, that's an XM currently for the new, what is that program called?
next generation squad weapon program.
Oh yeah. So what's that gun? Fury something?
277 Fury.
277 Fury. So that will be as clone correct as you can get in the near future.
FN, the 249.
Oh yeah, the 249S.
The 249S.
They did. They also
the
brought
249
back.
Para.
Yep.
FN, bring out the 240S. Bring us a semi-automatic 240. That'd be awesome.
I'm just waiting for HK to finally bring back some of their.
Oh, what about Ohio Ordnance Works?
Oh, the BARs and stuff?
Bars.
That's right.
They're doing a 240 clone.
Really?
Yeah. They do a 240 Bravo clone.
Is it an actual machine gun though?
No. Well, they can if you got an SOT. But they do a semi-auto version of that too.
Huh. Oh, she were going to say something. What was it?
No, I don't know.
So would
go
let me throw this. Would the 1877 Bulldog be a clone rifle?
I don't think I know what that is.
I don't know what that
The
is. either.
Gatling gun we have in the shop,
Oh.
gentlemen.
It's not in the shop anymore, bro.
It's still there. It's just getting cleaned.
Oh, it's getting cleaned.
Technically, yeah, it would be. Now we're going like as retro goes to guns, but yeah, that would be a clone gun.
Kentucky rifles.
Those are clones.
Those are
man. Well, I guess if they're new manufactured.
Would that Gatling gun have been brass back in the day?
Yeah.
Really?
So, predecessor to the M134 electric Gatling gun.
No one's doing a Maxim or a Vickers machine gun reproduction or anything, right?
No, not that I know of.
But I do know there's a one young man that came in one day. He was doing like a 1919 clone in a semi-automatic conversion.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of those come through.
Yeah.
Those are interesting little guns.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Oh yeah. It's like a Mod Deuce Mini.
Can't believe you thought the Maw Deuce would be that's the one?
Everybody in the world speaks 50 BMG.
Yeah.
Unless they speak 12x7.
We don't talk about it.